What's up, man? Man or woman, I don't know. Happy Ducky. Welcome, everybody. What's up? I suck at Fortnite. Something tells me that's like one of my children. Are you one of my children? I have more than a couple and less than a dozen out there. If that is you, Evan, this is my 500th subscriber celebration. So what are we going to do? The exact same thing we do every day. Thanks, Kelly. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming by. I'm working on a timber frame bunk bed with mortise and tenon joinery. So the bunk bed is going to be really sturdy, and I'm going to use, my goal is to use like less than 8 screws on the entire bunk bed, so that anybody, you know, with a basic level of intelligence could put it together just by looking at it. It's going to have some cool joints on it that have little pins. This end part here, I'll show you. Part that I'm planing right now is, this is the side, basically the lengthwise board. I don't know what you have, the runner on the side of the bed. And then this is one of the 4 corner posts right here. And right now I'm working on getting this mortise to go through this housing right here. And I've got it almost, it's almost on there to where I can push it on. I want it tight, but I don't want it so tight that it's going to split the wood, because that's a problem. So I'm trying to get it just to where I can tap it on with my mallet, wherever I set my mallet at. Oh, it's over there. I'm going to use my heavy mallet for this. So we got our housing and the mortise right here, and then this is the tenon. Let me clamp this thing down so I can. Yeah, no. I tried to scoot the camera back today because I got this long beam I'm working on. If I clamp this down, I can show you. Let me scoot it a little bit more, because like Heather said, it's just out of the screen. So you should be able to see it now. I could probably scoot it a little bit. So Kelly, if you're still there, the housing right here, this tenon's supposed to go in through here. You got to tap it right now to get it in place. And then once this is all the way through the housing, there's going to be a hole on the back of this tenon right here, like a square hole that I chisel in, and there's going to be a pin that goes through. It's going to tighten this post against this beam right here. So we'll have, you know, a upright and a lengthwise board, both connected with no screws, no nails, no fasteners, just wood on wood. So, which is the best way to do things. If you can construct things using wood on wood, it's always the best policy. Looks like I took a big chunk out of the bottom of that board when I was planing from the other side. That's the idea, Kelly, is to make heirloom quality furniture, you know. Everybody wants to leave their legacy somehow. So about 10 years ago, I decided that I was going to put some effort into learning how to do traditional woodworking and build furniture for people. And since then, I've built a number of beds, king size, twin, full, a couple of twins. I built toddler beds too. And what my goal is, I always do most of it with joinery. I usually use dovetails, but I want to use these through mortises on this one. Now let me straighten that out. Yeah. Like hopefully with the right mattress, you know, any person would feel comfortable climbing up in these bunk beds. That's the idea. I am getting over a cold, so I gotta like y'all are gonna see me with tissues probably all night. Welcome everybody. Just got my 500th subscriber today. If you're new, please subscribe. Click that like button. If you're here for ASMR, type a number 1 so I know to be a little quieter. I try not to talk too much unless I'm asked questions or somebody starts a chat, which I don't mind doing, but I try to be ASMR friendly. And so if you're here for that, just type like a number 1 and I'll know to be a little bit quieter. Yay, we're at 502 subscribers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I've reached that level of subscribership that I didn't know if I would ever get to. So thanks to everybody, all the regulars, friends of the show. Some of them I'm sure will be in here eventually. Juanita, Haint, Vitali, my various friends of the show. Hope they show up tonight. I needed all of them to get where I've gotten so far, and we're still climbing because we're trying to build something here, literally and figuratively. Join our Discord. Heather just dropped a link down there. There may not be a whole lot going on yet, but that's why we're trying to build that Discord so that we can have a 24/7 conversation, and this becomes the only live woodworking forum and forestry forum. So if you have questions, comments, input about woodwork, forestry, or anything besides politics, because I think a lot of us have had enough of that. I think I've had enough politics for my entire life. Shoot, but if you want to get political, drop a comment. Probably just add to the interaction, to be honest with you. So I don't care. I just won't respond to it. Trying to pare away some of this heavier wood that's on the edge of this mortise, this tenon, because it's going to keep it from sliding all the way on if I don't pare it away. This is a framing chisel, so it's used for timber framing jobs like this where you have big members of a structure and you're cutting them by hand. How about them Vikings? I'm not going to comment on football besides saying Skull Vikings. Skull Vikings. Maybe our last game tonight. We'll see. This type of woodwork is traditional to many parts of the world, not just Europe. Timber framing is a human skill that was developed like arrows, bows and arrows. Multiple places in the world, people were smart enough to figure out how to do this. But up north, there is a certain style of timber framing. And so I try to How you doing, Ahmad? Welcome. Well, welcome from Indonesia. I don't think you may be the first person who's commented from Indonesia, so welcome. I'm glad to have you here, and you are a friend of the show, Ahmed, join the Discord so that we can get. Oh, cool. That's awesome, man. I'm gonna have to check out your channel once I get off this live. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of woodworking channels since forever too. So it's possible I've seen your channel before. That's great, man. Appreciate you being here, man. Appreciate you. It's almost like where I want to check this joint again and see if I've got it to where it's ready to try. Let's give it a shot. All right, so we have our housing with our mortise, and then just a little recess to hold the end of the piece. Looks like it's fitting now. Let's give it a couple taps with my heavier chisel, with my heavier mallet. It is definitely getting there. So here we have a horizontal and vertical member. Obviously it's not completely vertical right now. It's not plumb. That's probably more like plumb right there, and we want to make sure it goes on plumb. That's really important. Let me check. That's where it needs to be, right there. Now I'm not going to put it on permanently here because, no, I'm okay at the moment, Heather. Probably have you come in a little bit. I want to make sure that I have this real, I actually sand my joints off too before I put them on. So there you can see what's about to happen. This is the bottom runner on a bunk bed setup. So this right here is going to be the long board, and the dimension should be 80 inches from outside edge to outside edge. That way we can put twin mattresses in there. By the way, welcome. If you're new to the live stream, click that like button, subscribe. If you're here for ASMR, type number 1 and drop it in the chat, and I'll be a little quieter and keep my mouth shut a little more. But I want to welcome Ahmed from his woodworking channel, new friend of the show. So we're going to take this off for now. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get these sides real square by hand planing it. So we'll go ahead and attack that now. And like I told you, I'm a little under the weather, so I may sound funny and have to blow my nose. Sorry to the ASMR folks, but you have to hear nose blowing. But that's what happens when you catch a cold. Gary, welcome. Welcome from the UK. I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad I saw you in the chat. Appreciate Gary. Shout out to Gary. Woohoo, 504. It's my 500th subscriber celebration today, this Monday. Happy Monday to everybody. I know Monday makes most people feel sluggish. I always felt sluggish on Monday. I certainly feel sluggish today because I don't feel well. I'm after this pretty good now. I'm going to switch it over to the other side. No, this is spruce, and I think it's two different kinds of wood. I laminated these. I believe this beam is spruce. I did not want to use oak. Hey, Vitaly, what's up, man? You know, we've been bringing you up every show. I'm going to give you a tardy for not being here. You got unexcused absences. Nah. Happy New Year to you, Vitaly. Welcome back to the show. Vitaly, friend of the show, out there from the UK also. Gary's, well, I guess Ireland's not the UK. So the Republic of Ireland is not the UK, but Vitaly out in Ireland, and I got Gary in the UK. So you two aren't incredibly far from each other. No, not oak. This is softwood. I didn't want to use hardwood on my live because it works my tools so hard. I have to sharpen them after every use, basically. I like really sharp tools, so. But good question, Gary. Thanks for the question. I'm going to turn this beam around so I can plane it from the other angle. It is heavy. I'm guessing what, Vitaly? You got a job doing this. You got a job doing woodwork. That's my guess. Which I would be very happy for you for. I feel like the outside edge is higher. Vitaly, you're making us wait. Making us wait for it, man. Heather, Evan's on the Discord. Oh no. Man, that's what you want to do, man. You're on the way. You got the ball rolling. That's great. I was close then. See, I could almost guess. Congratulations, man. We're very happy for you. Maybe you'll have your own channel and, you know, you'll be making cabinets on here showing me up. I would be extremely pleased to see you do that. We're a supportive community here. Good, man. What are you thinking about making? That angle right there. Must be a huge lag between here and UK. And that's why you guys kind of like when I say something to you, it takes you a minute to respond. Just learning all this stuff. Ooh, yeah. So my favorite woodworker in history is George Nakashima. Yeah, George Nakashima, my favorite woodworker ever. I do some power tools, Gary. Good question. I do some power tools. I try to use mostly hand tools here, especially on the live. If I'm using a power tool, it's just to show people how they can get around, like make their hand tool usage easier. So like if I'm cutting out a mortise or something, I may use a drill to like drill into each piece so that removing the waste or paring away the waste is easier. But I'm not using like circular saws to cut my mortises, though that is, there's nothing wrong with using power tools. Just here on the live, I do mostly hand tools. But good question. Yeah. Good question. Excellent. George Nakashima. Heather, drop George Nakashima's name on there. I wonder if George Nakashima used power tools. I bet he did. George Nakashima, Japanese-American architect and furniture designer. He created mid-century modern style. So he is the creator of some of his slabs he never made into furniture are still in his workshop, which is considered a national landmark. He has a Frank Lloyd Wright house, I believe, right next to his workshop. So it's that important. And his slabs are still there. His like desks and kitchen tables, some of the ones that he had there. Obviously, to own a piece of George Nakashima's furniture is extremely expensive, but he made it and people copied it. So we moved from what we call the arts and crafts era of furniture, where furniture was more massive, kind of like what I'm building here, to an era where minimalism was the way to do things, using as thin pieces of wood as you possibly can. But at the same time, Nakashima used huge live edge slabs to build his furniture. Yeah, he's got great stuff, man. Probably like one of the people I look up to the most because he was so good at it, man. He was a natural. During World War II, he was put in a Japanese internment camp. I believe Frank Lloyd Wright got him out of the internment camp so he could help him with architecture. So he spent a good amount of World War II working with Frank Lloyd Wright after he was freed from the internment camp that he and his family were in. So it's unfortunate that happened, but Frank Lloyd Wright knew how important he was and freed him. Yeah. Yeah, it is. He met his wife in Japan before the war. So he visited Japan to see what his ancestral homeland was like before World War II. He was there in the 30s and he met his wife there, married her, came back, and it was like the wrong time to come back. For him, you know. Yeah, his tables, and he built a lot of like what I'm doing right now. Definitely inspired by him. The through mortises, he built a lot of like tables, trestle tables with through mortises on them. He was just brilliant at putting together wood. He had a brilliant mind. And if you know anything about Japanese culture is fixated on intricacy. So that's why they're good at building cars and engines, boats and ships, pieces of electronics, and video games, because the Japanese culture lends itself to intricacy. Yeah, it's just you got to do everything slow, Jerry. So it's like too slow for most people. We try to do things at that speed here, so people can see what it really takes to build something like that. And if it's going to last forever, it doesn't matter if it takes you a while, right? If people are going to pass it down, then it's not a big deal if it takes you some time to make. Think of it like an inheritance. If you're not wealthy and you know how to do something, you can pass something down to your descendants. That's worth passing down if you can build it. There's a high low spot right in here that I keep catching. I really want this beam to lay flat, because if I don't get it nice and level on both sides, it won't sit in the housing right. And then every other joint I make is going to be off. So it has to be precisely on with very little tolerance, if you know what that means. Usually I wouldn't be breathing heavy because of woodwork, but I'm a little bit ill at the moment. So Vitaly, I'm building a bunk bed, a really like elegant bunk bed, with joined, with all the joints are going to be, I'm going to try to make it completely joined. But my goal at the end of the day is to use like less than 8 screws to put this this bunk bed together. If I can build it with all joinery, I'll do that. But if it needs a few screws, that's okay. I always aim to do everything with joinery, and then, you know, like this one woodworker taught me, aim for perfection and then end up with mediocrity, and you won't be that upset. So it's kind of what I go. I always use metric if possible, but on this I'm using inches. Probably it's less than, it's a millimeter or less is what we're talking about. Just like when you build a dovetail, right? Like my dovetails over here on the corners of these boxes, the tolerance is next to nothing. If you make one mistake, if one joint is just a millimeter up from where it should be, yeah, and that's understandable. Metric makes sense, especially when you're trying to get, if you're down at a 32nd of an inch, then really you just be using millimeters. It doesn't make sense to be using inches when you're down in the 32nds of an inch. And I see some of these layouts. I looked at a bunch of bed layouts before I started this project, and I was like, I'm not going to do anything that says 65 and 2/30, you know, in 1/32. Like, that's crazy. I'm not gonna do that. Give me it in millimeters and meters, centimeters, and then I'll do it that way. And even when I weigh things, like I make so I always weigh my stuff in grams. I started with the English system and just realized it's just much better to do grams of everything, including liquids. This is in inches right now. This beam right here is over 80 inches. I will give you the metric layout for it. I'm going to give everybody all of the dimensions of this in my Discord after I finish. I have to actually, some of it, there's no plan. I have to figure it out as I'm going. It's going to kind of build itself, if that makes sense. All I have is a rough layout. I don't have blueprints. I don't have detailed plans. I'm a right-brained person, believe it or not, trying to live in a left-brained world of order and numbers and Apollonianism. I'm a musician by trade, and that is a combo of left and right brain, and I always struggled with the left brain part of it. Yeah. Sometimes it means I have to remeasure things and look at them again and just go slower. But if you go slow enough, it shouldn't matter. If you don't have plans, if you have an idea of what you're trying to do, kind of a sketch. I drew out a sketch where I had basic dimensions in the sketch. What's that program called? SketchUp we were talking about, Vitaly? If you have SketchUp, you can do something like this easily. But that's a very expensive program, so maybe when I get this thing advanced and I get a couple thousand subscribers, I'll get SketchUp and put it on Streamlabs so everybody can see it as it's going, you know. Everything kind of raises where this knot is. Yeah, we'll have to find one of the free SketchUp type dupes, and then I'll sit there. I'll spend a couple of days doing the SketchUp layout. Ooh, I gotta take this off. It's hot. There are. Gary says he knows a few. I think Miss Heather knows a few too. We might be able to get a link or two here before the end of the live. Now that I've built pieces of this thing, when I do that, I have to be super careful that I don't put some dimension in incorrect and then end up with a whole bunch of dimensions and stuff that are not fitting to what I need. So I'm going to do it if I can, but it's going to be a little tricky. I'll have to be pretty careful. Oh man, that's nice and flat now. We're going to flip it over to this other side, use this as a reference edge, and then plane that other side. Yes, that is an original sled, rail sled. We restored that here on one of my lives a couple months ago. It wasn't particularly tricky. I had to take a piece of wood and glue it up and clamp it down. Yeah, well, that SketchUp option, you get a month of it for free, and then you got to pay $600 basically for the next for the year. So, freecad.org, libracad.org. Yeah, so check those out, Vitaly. Heather, what are we doing on subscribers? Because today is a 500 subscriber celebration. And you know, we lose subscribers like we get them, so I want to make sure we're at like 510. No, I'm in the shop. I had to take my sweatshirt off. Too hot. All right, did I flip this thing? No, I didn't. All right, let's flip it and use that as a reference edge. Now that we got kind of a reference edge there, and that's nice and flat, we don't want any schmutz under it either here, because if we have that, it'll set that level off. So all these little pretty little shavings and stuff gotta move. Yeah, that's definitely higher right there. Need to lock one of my wheels here. Oh, that's the one. Hey man, you know, we'll take the money, man. That's what we're trying to get to where I can take super chats and stuff like that. Obviously, you got to reach a certain number of hours to get to that level. Yeah, I did that, and I was a teacher, so I used there was like a trial I got as a educator, as a teacher, and that was what I went on. I think that was SketchUp. I'm sure the dupes are good and probably almost just as good, and you get a great deal, I'm sure. Always good to be precise, you know. This edge seems a bit higher to me. That's what I'm attacking right now. Yay, 508 subscribers. Yay, thank you, Gary. Gary, friend of the show. Just subscribe. Definitely. If not just to say you have the fancy stuff. I have. I'll show you on SketchUp. Oops. Sorry about that. ASMR people. Oh, sorry. Sorry about the echo, folks. I don't know why that is. Well, that would be nice, Vitaly. You know, that's one of those perks of being a student, especially in Europe where they actually care about the people. Um, they care about an individual's well-being enough to give you medical insurance. As over here, we're on our own. If we don't work, we die. Not saying that's a good thing. Yeah, you know, I'm a daily exerciser also. I probably wouldn't be breathing so heavy if I wasn't a little bit under the weather right now, but I am. Yeah, definitely handling heavy tools, and I've noticed myself that it does it boosts your fitness. Was it?
Yeah, it's like really super reverb.
Maybe there may be fees and stuff that you have to pay, but over there in Europe, usually, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but for the most part in Europe, like things are taken care of. Your student materials will probably be covered. You may have fees, but over here you could expect that. Like in the U.S., expect to pay more money. Everything is expensive. Um, Everything is a business, including education. So. Yeah, you kind of have to expect that. This tenon is probably going to have to wait till tomorrow. This is a Japanese style pull plane. I really like it for the small stuff. I sharpened the blade in it recently, which is not something you actually typically do with a Japanese plane. They actually just throw them away usually and get another one. Yep. It's the American dream, Vitaly. Live off credit cards. No health insurance and rat race and racism and live off of credit cards. Work your whole life for nothing just for retirement. That's the American way. If you make it till you're 60 something and you saved enough, you might be able to retire. That's the American way. This is not France. Heather might actually be able to get Irish citizenship, or maybe her mother, because I think either one of her grandparents or great grandparents would be from Ireland. So she probably could get that. Oh yeah, I mean this planer's pretty good, man. There's my strip. Not bad, right? Thing about woodwork, don't want to sound negative, but thing about woodwork is that's funny is that, and it can be very troubling, is that you could work hundreds of hours on a piece and then hammer it once, drop a piece, make one mistake, and all that work is done. Or you have to remake all of those pieces. Pippo, I would love, that's one of the projects I want to do once I monetize on here. I'm going to build like a timber frame tiny house. And we're going to do it all with 2x4s. So we're going to take 2x4s and laminate them into beams and then put together a timber frame kit in the shop that could be moved to a location and set up into basically a timeless house. So, by the way, Pippo, thanks for stopping by. Pippo Langstrumpf. Strumpf. I like that. Measure twice, cut once. Absolutely. I probably measure 3 or 4 times. Yeah. I know Heather's heard me say that a number of times. One thing we do have in the U.S. that you might not have over in Europe is a good access to lumber. Like, you guys don't have a lot of forests, so it's kind of hard to get the lumber that you need for these projects unless you pay big dollars for it. So one thing we are lucky to have here in the U.S. is lots of timber, lots of wood. I'm trying to turn this kind of into a forestry forum, live forestry forum. So that's actually the eventual goal, is for my Discord and this live stream to be a hub for anybody much more experienced than me, experts, master craftsmen, and cabinet makers, all to take their time to, talk to people and stuff, and just communicate about the craft. That's the idea here. As I know, as of now, there is no live forestry forum. My parents actually just got back from Ireland like 3 months ago. They went to Ireland and Northern Ireland for a good amount of time, like, a decent 3 weeks or something. And the last time I was in the UK, as I told people before, is 1999. I was in England. I stayed in London, and I actually took a road trip all the way up to Scotland, like an 8-hour road trip. And then we went in Scotland, went to the Highlands. That's where my ancestors are from, there in the Norwegian, the Nordic countries. Love Scotland. It was a great experience. I watched a whole 4 or 5 part documentary during the pandemic about trees in Ireland, the most ancient trees in Ireland. I was like, man, only the pandemic could lead me to watching a documentary about trees. Yeah, can't leave the family behind. hopefully tomorrow we'll finish up this other tenon and put both of the vertical posts against it so everybody can see how that looks. Then I'll measure that to make sure I've got 80 inches. Decide where those holes are going to go on each of these tenons for the pins, because there needs to be large hardwood. I'm going to use like cherry or whatever hardwood I have available here. I have some walnut and some other, like some chestnut. I'll use some hardwood to make the pin that goes through each through mortise. And then we can see what that, you know, once I cut those holes, that's good. That's going to be a whole nother live for that. And we'll get on with that, man, you know, keep it moving. But today is a celebration for 500 subscribers. I'm not feeling the greatest, as you can probably hear in my voice. Yeah, see, because just at an hour, I'm feeling like I've done 2 hours of work. Yeah, I did a lot. I built a timber framed a greenhouse during the pandemic. That was like what kept me busy. I also built somebody a bed and built tables and sold tables during the pandemic. Guys, I'm gonna get ready to wrap it up for the night. Tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be able to do an hour and a half or 2 hours. Tonight, I'm recovering from some sort of a respiratory illness, some sort of cold or flu or something. I'm very fatigued and tired constantly. But I really appreciate everyone being here. I love you all. Gary, shout out to Gary, shout out to Vitaly. I guess Haint is unexcused absence. Juanita, unexcused absence. So no excuse for that whatsoever. Indefensible. Yeah, that's great, Gary. That's what you got to do. See, you got to build yourself a bench, get your tools straight, and then once you got your workshop and you got your bench, maybe somewhere to sit, then you've got things to work with. Yeah, I appreciate it, Vitaly. Gary, thanks for stopping by. Make sure you subscribe, and I think you did because you were telling others to. And join the Discord. Anyone who's here, please join the Discord. Heather, drop that Discord link one more time for me. It took everybody here to get to where I am now. I'm not there yet, but we're moving towards it, and I appreciate every last one of you. Everybody have a great Monday night. I will see you tomorrow, Tuesday at 5:30. Love you all. Take care of each other. Peace.